All right, it's me, your boy, Tato. We're here for a very special episode of Wednesday Whacknalysis on a Saturday. We are splurging and living large with extra wax this week. So what I've been doing to try to find tournament footage is I've been just kind of trolling YouTube a little bit and just looking every couple of days for Amtgard or LARP tournaments that have been posted recently, and I managed to find Lupine Moon. I'm really pumped to give some analysis for these guys because, like, it's Alaska, right? Like, these guys aren't getting, like, a lot of travel and interaction from the rest of us, so they're kind of, like, out there on their own. So I want to do the best that I can to, like, support their wax journey remotely, essentially. So I'm pumped to see this and just take a little look at what we've got cooking over there. Like, I love fighting at all levels. Just gets me excited. So I'm pumped to do this. Also, a lot of these videos are posted in vertical phone view instead of landscape view. It looks like they switched between the two. So we're just going to do the best that we can with what we've got. So I don't know anyone's names from Alaska. So I'm probably just going to be assigning some random names to people unless people want to clarify in the chat who they are. But let's get into it. So this is round one, single sword. It was good audio. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. Okay. Some of these are, I think some of these angles are going to be a little bit tricky to see. Looks like it's a one and done, maybe? Let's watch like another fight and see if we can kind of glean the rule set. There we go. That's a better angle. Okay, I'm not sure if this is this must be a pit. All right. So let's go back. See if we can figure out what's going on. So like for blue tabard here, blue trim, one thing that I noticed right away, is so this looks like it was a rising chop from a low quadrant, and it's kind of going up, kind of like this at this angle, right? There's like a big sweeping chop up this way. So it looks like we kind of bent over at the back to try to throw this shot here. So what I like to do is if you need a lower angle, I really think that it's best to try to bend at the knees and keep your back as straight as you can. And if you need a sideways angle, I think it's best to power that with a lateral step, right? So it looks like we wanted two things here. So we wanted to get low and we wanted to get lateral, right? Going this way. So I think the way that we should have accomplished that is we should just bend our knees a little bit more when we advanced, and we should have powered this with like a lateral step. That way, like our back kind of isn't exposed here, so we don't end up with like a simul. So it's Bear Pit then top 8 for rule set. Thank you. So I'm assuming you're Blackhawk, I think is your persona name. Did you sign up for this for Twitch just to watch this stream, or? I'm just curious if you have a different persona name. But anyway, so I think this is something that we kind of want to try to stay away from. We want to kind of step in, bend at the knees, and if we want to get like a lateral angle, we usually want to take a small lateral step instead of kind of bending over, because it's less exposure. And with the rising chop, what ends up happening is your hand ends up in a high position. So if your opponent tries to throw back at you, they kind of have to throw back for your sword, and it blocks for you in a lot of ways. Like in single sword, I think it's really important to try to figure out, like, when I attack, how am I going to create some defense for myself at the end of my attack? So I think that rising drop, if we kept our back straight, would have created a little bit more defense for us. So that's fight one. Let's go forward. We got one fight there. I think that was a simul, so both guys went out since it's a pit, and then we get two people in. Okay. So, very good in and out by the fighter in green. You can see where like our approach is in and then we step back a little bit. That's good. I think a critique there that I've got is our hands. I feel like our hands are a little bit low. So like in our defensive position, we're kind of down here, right? With our hands in this area. So this would kind of block a hip guard, right? Block as though it were a hip guard, or block hip shots is kind of the point of having this position here. But I think the range here is long enough that these hips like aren't accessible, and it's kind of the top quadrants we want to worry about. So I think at a range like this, I think I would probably want to move my hand from here just up to here a little bit. So I think I'd probably raise this hand up a little bit. Let's see about Fighter in Red. So I think we've got a kind of a goofy footed stance here where our off foot is forward instead of our sword foot being forward. So that could kind of work, but the point of having like an off foot forward stance is usually you're trying to hand block with your offhand or the non-sword hand and catch something and throw in, right? But it looked like our strategy for the Fighter in Red over here. So the Fighter in Green is, it looks like this. This is Pyro, and then this is Pockets. Thank you very much. So this off foot forward here, sometimes people call it goofy footed. It's usually for blocking with your offhand and trying to hit people at the same time. But it looks like our intent here was to kind of throw counters to the hand, right? So this is the wrong way to be standing to do that. And the reason is because if you have your off foot forward and I'm trying to swing with my right hand, I have to throw across my body and get closer, right? Whereas if I'm sword foot forward, I have like a good bit longer reach. So I think that the footing here, it kind of doesn't match our intent. Like if we want to just counter strike and not use that off foot forward strategy, like that's fine. But you kind of want to use the footing that matches that intent a little bit more intentionally. So I think that's my piece there. I don't want to spend too much time on pits. Razor, do you know how long pits are? So I'm going to try to get to brackets and spend more time on that. There's a good body shot. Okay, we have music, so I'm gonna turn this music off. That we're in that double layer in it. Okay, so this is, looks like Pyro's kind of counter-striking a lot here, which is really solid. I think our feet are maybe just the tiniest bit static starting right at this moment. It may be like gassing out a little bit, but I think a little bit more needling would have been solid. That's a great shot. Pyro's doing good. This looks like he's going to end up being a big streak. I do love the addition of the music. That definitely is like hype editing. Okay, let's see if Pockets ends up using this offhand forward to get some hand blocks here. Okay, we're kind of using it as a bait right now. We're kind of backing up, popping our hand back, and throwing. So that's good. I think that was that's close to what this is used for. I think that goofy footed with that offhand forward, most of the time you're trying to use it to interrupt people and swing, and you want to like stop their sword on your arm and take their sword arm so they can't throw a second time and kill them when they switch. So I feel like our range here and our pressure from Pockets is like a little bit on the weaker side. Like we're trying to counter from long range using like what is basically a short range stance and a short range strategy. So I think maybe that's not what we want to do there. We need to make that footing match. Okay. Big swings. Do you know if there are any boundaries? Are people like confined to the box of the basketball court here? There are boundaries? Okay, that explains some stuff. Do you know what the boundaries are? Is it just this orange area? I think like this white line out here. It's probably like off the camera or something. Yes, that corner. Okay. Thank you. It's helpful to know because there's a lot of like strategizing that you have to use when you have boundaries. Do you know if there are soft boundaries or hard boundaries? Like, do you just get a reset if you step out, or you dead? Good. They were soft. Okay. So I think one kind of thing that I'm seeing thematically is I would have assumed that the black line was the boundaries. It seems like people aren't using a lot of the space that's available to them. And we're kind of instead opting for like this Western gunslinger kind of like standoff thing where our range is like really short and we're kind of not moving out around laterally very much to take control of the ring or anything. Like one way that you could pressure someone is you can slowly try to back them towards the corner. I think it's like less valuable if the boundary is a soft boundary where you don't get a kill if you reset them. But there's like there's lots of space that we could be using, and even just the idea that like let's say if I think if Pyro was in the corner, for example, he might at least be like hesitant to step back, right? And if he's hesitating about stepping back, that's like one less thing that he can think about while he's trying to address the fight, right? So one big component of fighting is you're kind of trying to like overload your opponent with information. So like where you are in space is a vector on which you can exert basically just like a cognitive tension on your opponent to like take away one of their resources that they're able to use to like compute the fight as a whole, right? But it seems like instead through the pits we're kind of opting to just like very politely just square off at like a reasonable gentlemanly distance. And I think like for fighting is about like it's not about being gentleman, right? Like it's about trying to eliminate the resources that your opponent has, trying to get them out of position, trying to confuse them, trying to mask your own intentions, like that kind of thing. So it looks like we're standing kind of close through most of these fights, and we're trying to kind of beat each other on reaction, and that's good. It looks like Pyro specifically is able to do that a lot of times, but I don't see... maybe we'll see it in the brackets, but I don't see a lot of like strategizing and counter-strategizing just yet for the people who are kind of coming into the pits here. It's kind of like we're close, we're taking straight shots, we're trying to beat the other guy by doing something that's too fast for him to react to. I think we need to take it like one layer deeper with like some feints and movement and such. So... I'm having to like kind of that does describe my fighting style, polite. Like, yeah, there's like I'm not saying like don't be honorable, but you definitely want to try to challenge your opponent across like multiple vectors where you're trying to like suppress their ability to fight you back and make choices that limits their choices and their ability to respond to you. You don't want to like try to fight your opponent where they're strong. You want to try to hit them where they're weak or force them to make some mistakes. Okay. That seems like it's good honor too. That's a good 1-2 combo from this guy with a cool hat. Let's go back and play that for another second. It's just like inside, outside. You got the hip on that. That's a great setup. I think that was like one of the first things that I've seen so far that was like, that was Norman. Okay. That was a really good strategizing. And hand matching is cool because it kind of lends itself to thinking about your swings and your offense, also creating some defense for yourself. So that makes sense. Okay. I kind of like the surprise here of like this person is holding the sword in both hands. And normally I wouldn't recommend that, but it looked like the gambit was to try to surprise Pyro with what hand that they were actually going to use. So that was pretty clever. But they just kind of switched it and then switched it back even. It didn't seem like it really panned out, but it was clever. Okay. We got some lateral stepping now. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So you can see this fighter here in the red shifts up, shifts back. That's exactly the stuff that we're looking for. So just what that does is you can see how Pyro had to kind of rotate to face him. And that's an example of kind of taking away someone's cognitive resources by like if they're trying to turn their body to face you in space, like they can't also step forward, backward, laterally while they do that, right? Like they can to an extent, but it's much harder. So like that's a way of kind of like introducing another vector that's going to make your opponent make some mistakes. Because one thing that happens really frequently is a lot of the times when people rotate to face an opponent that's moving laterally against them, they'll either over or under rotate. Or like as a bonus, if you step laterally while you're fighting somebody, sometimes they won't rotate at all if you press in after that lateral step. And what could end up happening is they try to fight you in this position. It's like normally I would be squared up running against you like this, right? But if you step this way and I have to engage you like this, if I don't rotate to fight you, suddenly I'm trying to like swing past my own body. Or if you throw around to this side, you can see how it's like kind of hard for me to get my arm over here to block. So that's one of the reasons why I want to see like more lateral movement in pretty much like all of these fights, right? And it's really fun because like when you play with lateral movement, like layer 1 is like just move laterally a lot and see what happens, right? Because you're trying to catch them on that beat when they feel like they need to rotate to face you. And it's a great way to get a lot of openings. Okay, so I want to talk about guards real quick. See if I got it. Okay, so for these guards here, we've got kind of a vertical sword here. And we've got another vertical sword here. And what I like to see more than vertical swords, let me give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna get my sword from my office so I'm able to demonstrate a little better. Give me 1 second. So like with vertical swords like this, the trouble is it doesn't create much defense for yourself. So if my sword's vertical, there's nothing really stopping you from shooting in vertically inside my shoulder. There's nothing stopping you from chopping horizontally around this way, right? So like what I like to teach is house guard, where there's 4 blocks. There's a block that's up here that's a slant of one roof. There's a slant over here, which is the surface of another roof. There's a lower vertical guard that covers a hip. And then there's a lower vertical guard that covers this other sword hip. But those guards are really low, right? So the guards that we're looking at, they're very close to being like hip guards, but they're not low enough to be hip guards, and they're also not high enough to be like shoulder and chest guards, right? Hey Noma, hey Relic, it's good to see you guys. So what I would kind of want to see is instead of like holding that sword vertically, if you're trying to just take a generalized defensive position, instead of having it here, I feel like this is much safer, right? Because the way that you're swinging at people in LARP is basically like, statistically, it's much more likely that the path of their shot is going to be perpendicular to a diagonal sword. Whereas like this, if he shoots up here, I have to kind of raise it up this way. So I like to take that kind of slightly diagonal guard in single sword to cover high quadrants because it's more likely to block stuff that's coming. So would you recommend having a higher guard for block 1 or having a lower guard for block 3? I guess I don't know what you mean by 1 and 3. If we've got... So this is my person. We're just going to do like just a generalized body here. Right? So if this is my imaginary person, my swords, the guards that I want to use, it's like I've got a guard. It's like here. That's a hand, and that's a hand. So these are my two high hands. I've got a sword that's this way. Let me straighten it up a little bit. And then I've got a sword that's this way, right? So this is, let's call this 1. Let's call this 2. If we draw more hands, right? This is another hand. And this is another hand. So we've got a lower, block 3, block 4. It doesn't really matter. That's 3 and 4. So you can see how the 4 blocks makes a house. I'm unfamiliar with the six strike method. I'm not sure what that means. I'll look that up. Let me write that down. So 6 strike. Six strike method. I'll look that up. But basically, like, if you imagine this little diagram with this dude here, the way that swings tend to happen is you might have like a swing coming this way, or this way, or this way, or like up this way, or up this way, you know, this way, this way, this way. So this kind of, if this is like a first person perspective, I'm not going to swing down this way because that's going to bonk him in the head, right? So I really just need to be kind of worried about covering around like this. So these 4 guards work the best. So, and this is like maybe hip height down here. It's not like at your feet, right? But I think that this method of guarding, it covers more angles. It's more likely to be perpendicular. Whereas like, I think the guards that we're seeing are kind of like here, which is just like a bit of a nothing burger of a guard, right? Because if I'm coming, I can slot down this way. I can shoot up across this way and hit this way. I can rising chop. I'm getting this backwards. Up this way. It just doesn't, this position just doesn't cover a lot. Yeah, you can number them however, right? Like the numbers are immaterial, but that's kind of how, I think as long as you think of like 1 and 2 or the top, like that's fine. I hope that makes some sense. Like this is the guard that I think we're seeing with this vertical guard. What I want to see is like more like house guard. If you want to look up more about house guard, you can YouTube combat geometry. Let me see if I can find it. This is... This is an older combat geometry class that I've taught that talks about house guard and all these kinds of things. So that's there in the chat for you guys. This is an hour-long class on like understanding how fighting tends to be shaped shaped and what spaces combat kind of takes up, right? So if the house guard explanation that I gave you with that explanation doesn't make sense, reference this video. I think there are other people that teach combat geometry as well. Just kind of referencing the one that I taught. But that's kind of one of the adjustments that I feel like the fighters in this area ought to make. Is like you can optimize that guard such that it has a higher statistical likelihood of being perpendicular for more shots. Because like if I'm swinging a sword into a sword and the path of the swing isn't perpendicular to that sword, like if I don't get my guard perpendicular to the path of the swing, it's very likely that the swing will bank off that guard and hit me anyway, right? Which block would you recommend to have for a guard? The higher guard or lower guard so you keep the house shape? I like the higher guard, and I will demonstrate why. Got dude 1. Dude 2. I can draw a square here. Yes, okay. Getting a little snappier with this drawing software. So basically, like, if my guy, this is his little hand, and this is his sword, right? So the things that he can reach are shaped like a circle, because your arm is like your shoulder is basically like the center point of the circle that your arm can swing through. So like all of the space that you can reach is shaped like basically a big dome in front of you, right? And obviously, like, there's no back half of the dome, but I find it just easiest to reference as a dome instead of a hemisphere, right? So let's say if his range is about this big. So let's say like he's got imaginary stubby arms, and this is all the kind of the higher that he can reach, all the further that he can reach, right? If you look at it, well, if my guy over here, if he starts to advance on this opponent this way, you got to think about like, okay, well, what can he reach first? And it's whatever is going to be tangent to this circle, right? Sorry, tangent is a line like this. So as he moves forward, it's going to be like, he's going to be able to reach this first. And then if he wants to hit the hip, he needs to get a little bit closer. Because like if this is about the same length, I'm kind of just rotating this in my mind. Like if he wants to hit the hip, right? He won't be able to reach this. There will be a gap of about this much in between these two guys before he's able to reach lower quadrant stuff. So I like to use a high quadrant guard at range, or you can use no guard when you're outside of their range, but I like to pop up into a top quadrant range. But what you're trying to do is basically, you see this is kind of it's like when you advance on somebody, the combat kind of happens in like phases, right? So like the first phase is basically like when we move forward here, the first things that we can reach are going to be like a zone that's something like right here, where like this zone is, well, he can hit my chest and my shoulders from here, but he can't hit my hips. And then there's another zone that's like a little bit more like this, where when you're this close, he's like, okay, you can hit my hips and my shoulders, right? So we're trying to like interface, yes, ABC range, right? And we're trying to interface with just this range first. So we only need the two top quadrant guards from there, because when we start interfacing with this range, that's when we have to start busting out like low quadrant guards. So if we're using low quadrant guards on the outside before we're even at this range here, if we're using low quadrants here, this it doesn't serve us. It doesn't cut anything off. I think that's what I'm getting at. Hopefully that makes sense. The combat geometry video that I dropped in the channel, you guys might want to paste that back to your Facebook group or something like that, but that covers all of this stuff. Okay, that was a good, like, aggressive push. It's funny. I mean, that's like a valid kind of trap. I got Voldo from Soul Calibur. I like the leaning around to create some confusion. That's good. Back to schoolwork. Well, thanks for dropping by. Hope you're able to lurk a little bit. Okay, that was good how I think Pyro kind of ranged his opponent out there a little bit. It just kind of counter-struck them. Because it looks like he's got longer arms. Oh, no, it looks like he lost. Okay. I think we're not really close enough, and we don't have enough fidelity on the video for me to, like, call every shot. And it's just not something I'm super interested in doing anyway. Fighter in yellow is Mara. Thank you. I love the music and the editing to make it smoother. That was like a great choice. I think what we kind of need to do here for the fighter in the green tabard is, like, I understand why we're being kind of pensive and we're trying to poke from the outside to see if we can kind of get something going there. But I think what we need to do here when we have a legged opponent is we want to try to pivot a little bit. You don't have to be a friggin' jerk and, like, circle so that they have to grind their knee into pace on the basketball court. But you can use small lateral shifts to try to create openings for yourself. To try to make it so that it's a little bit harder for them to reach you. Caristo in the darker green. Okay, Caristo. Okay. It's a good call. Someone's back. Okay, we got some circling. That's good. Did he slip? Did he get hit in the groin, maybe? I want to see that again. Alright. I'm not gonna eyes over it. Might even slip. I'm gonna say when it opens up into a wide view, is that I'm wondering if this is rounds now or if this is still pits. Okay. It just kind of seemed like that was like a newer player that wasn't very sure what to do, where they got hit in the body there. I think there were 2 camera operators that pulled their footage together also. Okay, that's cool. I'm glad people were cooperating to get footage together. That's awesome. Different pit. It's Karista and Mara. Okay, I like Karista's stance here with his sword pointing kind of forward. But they're not... That's like a thing that you can do, but they kind of didn't threaten any stabs with it. That's good range. That was good footwork in and out. Okay, that's a little thrust. I think you need more oomph to get someone to bite on that. That was smart. I like that. Watch that again. So this was really good misdirection here. And there's a couple of layers to this, right? I think that I might have like added a little bit more body English to some of this. And I'll note that as an optimization, but I want you guys to look at the context that was created here by Caristo. So we've got the sword pointed forward at the opponent, right? And they kind of do some pokes. They do like a little quick baby thrust. I'm gonna stab you. I'm gonna stab you. And that's fake stab and slash. Right there. So that's a perfect setup, right? So, and you see this really commonly with warlords in the past couple of videos that we've done, and like Keep or the Winter's Edge tournaments that we critiqued a while ago. It's like this is a very safe range to kind of just gesticulate from, right? Because Mara can't reach Callisto in this situation, so Callisto can take the initiative to kind of like just put some passive intent there. It's plant some ideas in their opponent's head to say, yeah, I'm gonna stab you, and then slash at them, right? So I think what I would have wanted to optimize this and make this even more effective is like Callisto is kind of like pumping their hand a little bit, but really when you fake a stab, what we're doing in LARP more often is like thrusting, where most of the stab is actually coming from our footwork. So I would want to do maybe like a little stutter step and bake in some lateral movement back and forth like while we do that. So like fake a thrust and then take a step to the left. Fake a thrust and then take a step to the left. And then when Morris rotates the whole way around, fake that thrust and then snap over the top again. I think that would make that sequence even better. And the other thing is, I think that my suspicion is that Callisto or some of the other fighters are more willing to do something like this in a situation where the other fighter doesn't have their leg back, so they can't like explode on you and punish you for that, right? So you might feel a little bit more confident, so you might gesticulate on the outside of their range a little bit longer to try to get some ideas in their head. It's very safe to do so, right? So if your opponent still has their legs and you don't feel safe to do that kind of stuff, you are probably standing like 6 inches too close to them, right? Because you can do the same thing when people are not legged, and it's extremely powerful, and it's basically like fundamental to all high-level fighting. It's like on that outside range where no one can reach each other, we're constantly like shuffling, juking, moving laterally, stuttering with our hands with like different fakes and just trying to plant ideas in the other guy's head, or alternatively like read that intent and then respond to it, right? But that was a great example of Callisto doing exactly that with like a nice layered approach there. That's really good. Some shot discussion. It's so nice that there was music built into this. Kind of animated discussion here. So like this is a good example of kind of being too close, right? Like you want to be at a distance where your opponent has to take a step to hit you, right? Because when we're already this close, our opponent doesn't have to do anything to come get us, right? But we want to make sure that our opponent has to take a step forward to hit us. And the reason for that is because I think there is sometimes is like an illusion that like people's reaction speed is just like super fast, especially like really good fighters. Their reaction speed is like blindingly fast. And really what happens with upper level fighters is we are trying to minimize what we actually have to react to, or give ourselves more time to react to it, right? So like a way of doing that is ensuring that like our opponent has to take a step forward to hit us, because a lot of the time people will take a step forward and they'll also load their arm into the position that they want to use to power the shot that they're going to throw. And that arm position that we're loaded into, that communicates to us where they're going to throw. Basically, like your brain builds up this like lexicon of like, okay, if their hand is here, that means they're going to chop vertically. If their hand is positioned out a little more like that, that means they're going to shoulder wrap. or maybe like if their hand is positioned across like this a little bit, it means that they're going to throw a reverse wrap to the hip, stuff like that, right? But having that extra step backwards gives us more time to process that kind of stuff. So you want to just like, this is just like maybe 6 to 12 inches too close to the opponent. We need to be a little bit further away. So most fighting is not reaction. Most fighting is like a double blind situation where like you don't really watch the other guy throw at you so much as like you feed them information that makes them very likely to throw to a place that you are prepared to defend, or you are trying to you're trying to feed them information to make them move their guard to the wrong location so that you step in and throw on it, but you're not always like reacting to that stuff. You are on some level, but we're trying to like minimize the amount of reaction that we can with those like impressing upon our opponent like a false intent, like the stab, little pumpy stabs that Callisto did in the other one. I like the use of Callisto's like level changes to try to reach that leg. I feel like fighting with socks on a basketball court is super bold, man. I feel like I would slip and tear my hammy. So that was good. This was what I like to call a cross trap, where you'll see Mara throw repeatedly this high cross to the side, but she's also moving kind of like laterally like this, right? So the repeated crosses essentially locks your opponent's guard in place, but it's your feet that actually do the killing, because while that guard is locked in place and the opponent is thinking like, I'm safe, my defense is catching this shot, their feet adjust that position and it lets you kill them, basically. So that was good. Watch that again. Cross trap. So it's like cross, cross, cross with like a little bit of lateral movement. Worked wonderfully for him. Okay. I think we're still in pits because it's a silence, so we're both out. It's kind of a long-range leg shot. So I like this position here with a handguard. That's solid, where you basically like you're basically using your offhand as a point of armor. So that's like level 1 hand blocking. Level 2 hand blocking would be keeping our hand like kind of lower in a neutral position and then moving it up to this position as they close in range, right? So if I hold my hand like down low and it communicates to them, oh, maybe I can still hit them in the chest. And as I get closer, then you can pop it up and close it off. So it's Perrin in the black and blue trim. Thank you. That's Perrin Caristo. Good athleticism here. This level change is nice. Would have been better if it was like out in a direction. But level changes can be really powerful because basically like if you watch the combat geometry video, it talks about basically like with single sword and Florentine especially, you have to have your hand in exactly the correct position to cut off angles to be able to block. But with the shield, you can kind of just like generally put it in the way of your opponent's sword. But sword positioning is really specific for defense, right? So I think that this fighter had a great idea where if you pop up, right, that guard needs to come up a little bit. So like one rule, heuristic that I use is my fist. If I'm trying to cover top quadrants, so like if there is a line between this guy's shoulder and this guy's shoulder here, it's kind of, these guys are too close to the same height, so it's kind of messing with my line a little bit. It keeps snapping to be a straight line. Let me see if I can just freehand this. Don't be a coward. Freehand it. Yeah, nice and straight. Good job, Mikey. Okay, so if we've got a line connecting these 2 points here, point here, my fist for that top quadrant guard is usually like maybe just a little bit further, and it's right on this line. So that is what kind of covers that top shot, right, that lane up there. But what this fighter over here decided to do was to go up to try to change that. And that's smart, because if you mix the line something more like, we're going to use orange for our new line, from here down to here, right? And our guard is still in this red circle position. Now they can throw it over top. But what you can kind of do, instead of jumping up, because jumping up is like kind of committal, you can actually just take this foot and gain a little height by moving it closer to this foot. I use this all the time in sword and board, where I come in kind of low and then I move my feet together temporarily to stretch up to my full height of a magnificent 5'6". 6 foot even on my Tinder profile. But basically, by moving your feet together, you can get a momentary adjustment in height. And it also has the benefit of being extremely fast. And because the vertical change is not like super dramatic, it's really hard for the opponent to read it. Additionally, the same thing works in the opposite direction, right? So we're going to use green for our next line. If this guy drops down here to where his shoulder is this way, it becomes very easy to shoot under. I want to freehand the line. We're going to pretend that he dipped really low. If he goes under this way, it's a lot less likely that the guard will be in the right position. So you can adjust up or adjust down if their guard is not in the right position. But you don't have to do so very much. You can dip down a little bit, straighten up your back, and you put your feet together a little bit to be able to throw over the top, or bend at the knees a little bit to throw underneath. But I think that this fighter is definitely like onto something here. It just doesn't need to be like quite that big, because big movements are easier to read because your body has to like, you have to load your knees and your quads to be able to jump. So you have to drop down and then burst up to jump. And it's like just very easy for someone to see you changing that verticality when you drop down and then jump up. But if you just straighten up a little bit, there's like no time to react to it. Accidental face bop. So that was a good example of that level change, where like if we go here, so this is like not quite a hip guard here, but it's pretty close, right? And you can see that Perrin drops down a little bit to hit this leg. So like the sphere of things that Perrin can reach is kind of shaped like, we got center point here, shoulder is here. So kind of like this, right? But when he drops down, that's an awful circle. When he drops down, it changes his sphere to the center point becomes like right here. Super lousy center point. Like this, and you can see how this down here kind of reaches these lower quadrants here, so you just kind of drop down the pop. So it's like in range for a torso shot right here, and then we dip down and swing the leg and just kind of drop our whole sphere down. That was good, and you can see that it was pretty fast too. Okay, we got fake stabs. That's some knee pads doing work. Okay. I think that this fighter here probably just doesn't feel very confident in their movement because they're sliding around with these socks on. But I really like what they're doing with trying to move laterally and experiment with getting different angles. I also like that they're kind of leaning side to side to kind of change the coordinate system a little bit so that they're able to reach different things. I think the only problem is like lack of traction means that they're not very confident in their movement, and it seems like their shots aren't very practiced yet. But the leaning and the lateral movement are both great ways to open up new stuff. That's really solid. Great job editing, by the way. Thanks for like putting everything together. It makes it fun, and I think it's a really good park advertisement, and people just don't make enough content, to be honest with you. Like, I think people are like looking for LARP but kind of can't find it. Okay. I like the side to side that this fighter's doing in the plain clothes. I think that they don't have the practice with their hands to make it work for them just yet. But I love what they're doing because lateral movement exerts like a lot of pressure in general. It's good stuff. And they're using like a variety of different like ways of balancing their body and stuff too. So they're kind of like exploring what their body's capable of. I think they're kind of just sliding because they've got socks on. But I think it's good stuff. It's a little too close. This is too close of a position. Great, the guy went, I think. That's what they're saying. One thing I'm noticing is it seems like everybody kind of wants to throw at the same time as everyone else. So, and that's just called counter-strike timing. It's super valid. But a lot of the time when you see like basically kind of just one timing principle, you need to try to play off of a different kind. Like if someone's trying to counter-strike you, if you just pump your hand to get them to throw, you can block and then throw back at them while they're recovering from like having their shot be guarded, essentially, right? So like if everybody's kind of using that same timing principle, it's a good idea to kind of mix that up to throw people off. You have to be kind of confident in your defense. But the other thing is like if you stutter to elicit shots to come back at you, you can have a lot of ability to control like where they're going to throw, right? So for example, let's say my stance is like here, right? And if I stutter across my face this way, right? Like that, it looks like I'm going to throw a complete shot going in this direction, right? So I just pump my hand this way. But if you notice like what kind of comes open when I do this, right? So if I pump this way, you can kind of see that like, well, if you wanted to swing at me and you came this way, you're very likely to kind of run into my sword and just get blocked, right? But this shoulder over here looks very open. So you can pump, bring your hand back, catch the shot that comes in, and then throw around at them. And you may be thinking like, okay, well, what if they just throw at your body instead? Well, what you would do, it ties back into what I was saying before, where like my base fighting position is going to be far enough away that they may be able to hit my chest or my shoulders from a specific range. But I want to stand in such a position that my hips and my body and my stomach are like too far away from them to reach, and they would have to kind of lean over a little bit lower to be able to throw. So if someone's just kind of counter-striking you a lot, you can try stutter this way, come back and catch the block, and then throw in and hit them. It's a good way of kind of like reversing that timing principle on them. And the other thing that's nice about it is if you know that they're going to throw at you and you stutter your hand in a short motion, you can take control of their timing because now they are throwing at you at a time when you are ready to do something about it too. So that's two different vectors of control. You're exercising control over the timing by giving them the thing that they're looking to react to. And you're also exercising control over their targeting by giving them appetizing locations to throw at, right? So that just lets you kind of manipulate your opponent a little bit and get them to attack you in specific ways that you are prepared to deal with. That's good, that's good, that's good, that's good. Go back, 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 back. Okay, okay. So this was good for a couple of reasons, right? It's very small, very subtle, but there's a very small blade beat where this fighter here, they kind of bop this sword out of the way a little bit from the inside, and then they also use that as an opportunity to throw. So they go blade beat, hip shot, right? So let's see that again. So it's like knock it out of the way and then swing. And that blade beat forced his opponent's sword up, and he had to take the time to get control back of it and then throw it back down at them, right? So I think that was a really good approach because it had like some built-in defense. Because like if you're blade beating, you've already basically got a block because you've thrown your sword into their sword, essentially, and it gives you a moment to go and hit them. So that was really solid. And we're kind of just parsing out our shots a little bit here and trying to figure out what we're supposed to take. Did a good vertical shot here. He's just calling himself dead and saying he got hit in the hip. That's good. That was the same mad air shot up top. I like where I had like a little downward flip and then went over top to try to throw it. And it looks like he did get the arm, but he got hit in the hip for it. But that's still good play with it. Okay, give your footed stance again. We've talked about that. Now this was a good kind of like multi-level cross trap. I believe this was Parent here, right? Where I think that they throw this way and then they throw lower as their feet pivot kind of out this way. So let's watch that again. This is really solid. There's bonk, bonk. Yep. I got like a third one in there for good measure. Okay, got one in. Oh, great thrust, great thrust. It looked like it only hit hand, but okay, yeah, soft boundary. I saw it there. There's just a lot more room that we could be using, especially like laterally. I really encourage people to like take advantage of that space and move around a little bit more and just like kind of play with it. Because I think out of the rings that I've seen, this is kind of the biggest one I've seen so far, which I think is good, right? Like I like a big ring because I like people to be able to express their speed and their footwork and their range control and stuff like that. We're kind of not taking advantage of it. We're kind of just like agreeing to fight kind of close in and try to beat each other on reaction, like very politely, right? I wouldn't be rude. I would move left, move right, move in, move out, try to pressure people, try to get them to step out, back them against the corner. So like right here, you can see like, okay, so this is a soft boundary, But this fighter is still conscious that they're at a soft boundary. So they kind of like stop moving backwards. And it gives this fighter kind of like a free approach in to kind of stop them. So I love all these suggestions. It will really help our smaller pawn grow their skills. Yeah, that's why I'm trying to help. And I'm glad that you guys are all here to listen. And thanks for taking the time to take my feedback seriously. I appreciate it. So you can see we're here, right? And this fighter, even though it's a soft boundary and he's not going to get in trouble for stepping on it, does not step out. So what I would like to see is this fighter, they'll move laterally a little bit, not so much that they let them escape, but just enough to keep them uncomfortable and keep them from stepping away. But just kind of pin them down at max range and kind of snipe them, which I think is basically what happened there. But it's good stuff. Great. I'm glad it's helping. I love to hear that. So I like this horizontal guard here. This is solid. I'll raise it up a little bit so that it was on a line from shoulder to shoulder here. So it's like a little bit low, but it's still good. It's a good faking there too. Good, get in and out. Get in and out. Okay. That's a good body shot. Do you see the level change here? So like, and what I liked about this shot, go back. So we're up here, right? We come around low. We bend at the back a little bit and the knees. You can see these knees coming out here, right? And we get that low shot, but we're not like twisting our back around to try to hit them. Like our body's just straight. We dip and throw. That's like perfect execution. Knees are bent. Back's bent a little bit, but we're not accomplishing all of it with our back. This is definitely like a model low quadrant shot for people to look at. So this young man was only on his second week ever. He felt defeated, but he did well for being so new. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm sure you're talking about the dude in the socks. I'm sure that they like had shoes, but you can't wear marking shoes on a basketball court or y'all will get kicked out, right? So I think that they did great. They're really playing with their lateral movement a lot in a way that I feel like once their form with their attacks and defense works for them and they get a little bit of experience, I think the lateral movement that they were playing with is going to turn into like some very good fighting very quickly, because no one else in here was moving laterally very much at all. And that is like a huge thing to do in single sword, especially. Also Florentine, I don't know if you guys play Dark Souls or Elden Ring or Expedition 33, where you've got like stat scaling, where it's basically like for 1 point in strength, if your weapon scales with strength, it gains lots of damage for every 1 point. Or if it doesn't scale with strength very well, you gain like a couple of points instead of tons of points. So I feel like lateral movement for single sword and Florentine, in terms of power and victory percentage, scales extremely quickly, right? Whereas like with sword and board, I feel like it still scales very well, but like it's especially noticeable in these combinations. So I'm pumped to see what they come up with, like the next time that I come around to drop video review for you all. So I think sometimes people are hard on themselves too when they come out for like their first tournament, especially if it's like their second event, because like this game is really hard and really deep, and people definitely want to win. I feel like everybody feels like they can fight like with a sword or a stick or whatever. But it's actually very hard and very technical. But I hope they had a good time. I hope they come back and keep training. Ooh, 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 ooh. Good, 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 good. I think there's Pyro in the green. It's not right here. So this was great because this is called a setup. It's where you attack someone. Pyro and Norman, thank you. It's where you attack someone with a kind of a quasi-safe shot, where it's like not really intended to kill them, but it's intended to get them to throw back at you so that you can block it. And after you get that block, then you hit your real target. So this was a really good example of doing that, where, let's slow it down a little bit. So it's like kind of a shallow pop to the hand right here. Not shallow, pretty deep. But we got our guard back, and then we blocked for the hip right there. And you can see the position that we're in, where Norman here is extended and deep and on the outside of Pyro's sword here, right? So Norman's sword is back this way. Pyro's sword is in front of it, covered, and he's got free access to hit the body. So that's great. And that's one of the risks of trying to throw deep, low quadrant shots, is you can get stuffed out and blocked like this. Additionally, this is basically perfect house guard. I think he could be maybe slightly more vertical here, but I don't think it matters a ton for like the verticality for the low quadrant guards. It's like the tiniest minor quibble, right? Like I think the optimal would be like here, right? There's like a 15-degree difference. Like who gives a shit? But this is like a great block and then a great return, because he gets because he's trapped that sword on the outside, he gets like a quick pop to the arm and the body for the win and just takes it there. So that's one of the reasons that defense is so incredibly powerful in single sword, because if your opponent throws at you, there are a lot of positions that you can get them into where they can't throw back at you anymore. Okay. My suggestion to the guy on the right, these are good stabs, but you can't stop once you stab them, right? So you notice like we throw our stab and then we pause, right? I think like what we're trying to do here when we pause in the end position, when we hit people, is sort of like insist that we have hit them in a way, and like it really just doesn't do that, right? Like I think everybody's like taking their shots fine for the most part, and I'm not gonna like super worry about shot taking in a video where I'm gonna spend like 2 seconds on each fight and it's far away, it's grainy, whatever. But the basic purpose behind like stopping when you hit someone and laying their sword on them and pausing is essentially like what you're trying to do is make it clear and obvious that you have hit them. And the issue with that is it's really just never clear and obvious that you have hit the person. What you want to do is you get your stab or you get your hit and you go back to a defensive position immediately afterwards, as though you have not hit them at all, so that you are ready to protect yourself, right? Because you never know if you're gonna like slide off of someone, or like if someone's fighting really dirty and cheating a lot. If you kind of lay your sword on them and stop, what'll happen is they can just swing like 5 times at you. And then the Reeve, who's like trying to arbitrate it, they're not going to remember that you laid your sword on them. They're going to see that you got hit 5 times. And like you can really only remember like 2 or 3 shots or something like that at a time. So the Reeve is just not going to even remember that you kind of hit them on shot 1, right? So like with the way that you want to fight, ideally, is like you throw and you keep yourself safe until the opponent is dead. And I'm not saying don't smash on them repeatedly and ignore things that hit you, but you basically kind of square up, throw your shot in, protect yourself, step out, see if they call their hit, then go back in and then do it again, right? Like, that's how you would deal with that kind of situation. I think that that's how the best fighting is done, because like really, like it's a really fast game and you're really never totally sure that you've hit the other guy. I have been playing for 25 years, and I still like blink or flinch sometimes and don't see things. I think that I'm like aware most of the time when I have flinched or have blinked and did not see something, but that's like not everybody, right? So yeah, because I think this is a fourth example of me stopping after throwing a thrust. Yeah, there was a couple other. I don't know that it was 4. I think it was like maybe 2. But you don't want to stop. You want to pop them, get back into the position, and protect yourself. It goes for like slashes and stuff too. I feel like all fighting is kind of like this weird fishing where you're outside of range, you get into range, you throw, you hit them, and then you back out and check again, right? Check to see like what the situation is. You kind of don't want to like sit on the inside and mix it up for too long, because the context of the fight starts to kind of lay, it starts to accumulate, and getting on the outside lets you kind of reset that context, clear the cache, think about what kind of signals from your opponent are important and what's not. I think I want to go back. So the other thing that you want to think about is a lot of these shots are like designed to hit your opponent, but there's no defense to them. A thing that you want to think a lot about is when I'm throwing, what defensive position can I go to after I throw so that I'm able to block again? Because that's like, hitting them is good, but you have to stay alive, right? So having reaved many of these, I can attest that remembering beyond the last few shots is a challenge. It's partially why we have 2 reason, a camera person, when we have them available. Yeah, the other problem is like the camera kind of like flattens things a little bit, or doesn't have great resolution, or has like a tiny screen, so it's kind of hard to figure it out. So you kind of have to fight in a way that's like, it's easy to reave. It's a little bit easier for both opponents to kind of figure out like what hit them and what didn't. That's why I kind of like, I really like getting in, executing my plan, and then getting out, resetting, getting in, executing my plan, getting out, and resetting. Just don't assume they're dead till they say so. Is laughing about something? So we're being kind of casual with our left hand here. He's probably not very confident in using it, but you know, you gotta kind of scrap to get that left hand going. Father and son. Oh, I like that. That's cute. It's like, son, you better not hit me, or I swear I'm going to take your Xbox. Just kidding. Just kidding. I think that's how my mom would beat me in a tournament. She'd be like, Michael, I'm taking your Super Nintendo if you hit me with one more rap shot. Let's go back. That was good. That was pretty close. That was pretty close. I liked our defensive step here. I think what we needed to do was we kind of didn't back up continuously the way we ought to have. We kind of turned our back and turned away after we kind of got our shots in. You just back straight out. So more like he'll get spell work if he sells shots. I love that. I love that. Oh, aerial. Aerial. So there's this win. We get that jump shot. That's 3 jump shots. I do like the jump shots. That's really fun. I want to see you like do a jump shot, but don't throw at the top of the jump. Wait till you land and then get low and then throw like a low shot. There's a fighting game concept called an empty jump where you normally, if you would jump in Street Fighter, you would kind of descend with an attack, right? I want to see you empty jump and then get low and then throw them after having jumped attacked, right? And that kind of takes me into, I'm like kind of serious in suggesting that, but what it kind of, I'm trying to allude to is essentially like when you're fighting in multiple sets, what you want to think about is like, what did I attack with last time? And then use the thing that you attacked with last time to set up your next attack, right? So like that's an example of like if I jump and I throw over top of your arm, the opponent is like maybe they won't expect you to jump again, but they might, right? And if you do jump, they're going to expect you to throw that same shot to the arm, right? So if you jump that second time and then land and throw low instead, like a totally sweet video game character, it's going to be like a little bit more unexpected. But you can do that with anything. It doesn't have to be jumping, right? Like I saw you taking some thrusting stances and stuff like that, right? So you have to think about like, well, my stance is communicating that I really want to thrust at my opponent. So you could just pump some stabs at these guys and then slash at them afterwards from that stance. Or like if you get a good stab on fight 1, right? On fight 2, fake a stab and then smack them over the side or something like that, right? So you want to think about like our sets, like as we fight each other, we're learning about what the other person is doing, and you want to kind of try to take that natural learning process and turn it around on them and use it to confuse them. Yep. I call that building context, like your fighter tracks, like the context of all of the things that you've done throughout the fight, and everything you do adds to that context. So you just think about like, okay, well, like what context have I established and how can I use that to confuse the dude? So some discussion. Okay. So good movement by Pyro here. Let's just go back and call that out. I know Pyro got hit for that, and that's okay. Like that's okay. But we're going in and out. I feel like Pyro is fighting from a decent range here, where he has to step forward to hit his opponent, and then he steps back out to reset himself. So watch that again. A little slower. In, out. And I think he does it one more time. And we got hit for that. I think he ended up getting killed there, but you can see that the attempt was like, he came in and executed his plan, and when his plan wasn't working out for him, he tried to back off after that, right? So that's like the workflow that you want for a single sword. You don't have to back off in Sword and Board, and sometimes it's advantageous not to. But I think in single sword and Florentine, you almost always want to get in and get out. Like get in, execute your plan, get out. Get in, execute your plan, get out. You don't want to kind of like hang and bang with people because it turns into like I basically call it like an old-timey Western standoff, you know, where they're like, oh, pistols at dawn, you know, and like you're just waiting and trying to react to the other guy moving, and you just don't want to be in that situation. You get in, get out, get in, get out, and just plan out what you want to do, execute the plan, leave the fight. It's a good step. That looked good. That was good control there, where we had like we had a couple different shots at that forearm from a couple different angles. So that was like a kind of a backhand vertical chop and then a horizontal chop after that way. So that was really good. And that's especially good because remember when we discussed the cross trap previously, well, you can't really throw that cross trap from a kneeling position because you can't execute the lateral footwork necessary to like make that cross trap work, right? So you have to beat them, instead of beating them on positioning by moving laterally, since we can't move laterally from a knee, we're beating them on targeting instead by mixing up the direction that we're attacking from. So that was really solid. I didn't know if that panned out for him or not, but that looked like the right tactic for him to use. Boy, that music gets really gross when I slow it down. Oh, yeah. Multiple angles. Oh, that's sick, man. It's like real sport stuff. Just loving it. It's synced up. It's synced up, too. Love it. I don't know which one to watch because I love this so much. It's really good. It's really good. It looked like I think you guys said that this was Pi here, right? And then I know this is Mara. But it looked like we had like a double tap over the top. I think I'm watching this window right now because it's got a little bit more information. There. Okay, I'll remember that because of the aerial attack. So there. It's that. No, not the nipple. Not the nipple. Oh, man. Nipple shots in Alaska have to hurt like 10 times as much. So for stabs, let's see. You have to think about... I think that this angle on stabs, personally... in Amtgard, it's very rarely worth it because it's very likely to hit neck or start at the face and then go down into a legal target. So I like stabs that come up from this direction, or like you can stab up from real low. But I especially like stabs like a hook stab that comes in from this angle, or a reverse hook stab that comes in from this angle, because since they're moving across a horizontal plane towards your opponent's body, they're not as likely to hit something illegal. Yeah, it's just a function of like head and neck not counting, that you kind of have to think about like, well, what direction is my stab coming from, and go from there. So is this a North Reach footage? Can y'all please tell Pyro to move back to Northern Lights? We miss him. I suggest North Reach keep Pyro because he's doing quite well. Yeah, that's funny. This is the synced footage is so freaking cool that I'm like having trouble doing my freaking job right now because I just love it. It looks great. It gives it like a professional sports air. It just really is like, it's hitting my dopamine circuitry really hard right now. That's good. So this was the right angle for the stab, where it was kind of like a hook in that went around like this. No danger of hitting them in the neck or anything. You still got that pause. We already discussed it. We don't need to discuss it again. But that's a great hook. It's funny. That was great, though. That was great. Pyro and Perrin. Somebody's got to tell Pyro that they're fighting over him in chat. If someone was fighting over me in someone's stream and no one told me so that I couldn't just like bask in people fighting over me, I would be very sad. So you got to let Pyro know. Let's watch this fight again because I think this is the finals. That was a really good switch by Pyro after getting hit in the arm. A really fast switch. And what could be really common for fighters is when they get hit in the arm, they immediately like throw the sword into the other hand and attack again really fast. Pyro tried to back up instead and try to get a reset. And I think that that's the right thing to do. Like, just because you're down an arm doesn't mean that you should like instantly try to simul the other guy to get a reset. You can still win, and it's better to try to get your reset when you're not facing the lag time of switching your sword into the other hand too. So when you get hit in the arm, I think it's best to do whatever you can to try to get clear of the other guy's range. I think Pyro did a good job of doing that. I did. He's playing Warhammer 40k with my husband right now. Gotcha. So let's watch this one more time. Okay, so I think he just detected that he got hit in the mix. I just didn't realize it before. So that was a good shot on him. And then this one is... I think our main issues and why Pyro dropped this match, I think he's using great targeting mix-ups. But the two issues I see is our retreat is linear. So a linear retreat is sort of like pretty trivial to catch up to, right? Because people can move forward faster than other people can go backwards. And these two dudes are like, they look like they're about the same height and about the same weight and pretty close to the same height. With, I think, Pyro being maybe like a little bit taller, a little bit heavier. But I think we can assume that there's not much of like a foot speed difference between these two guys, right? So when you retreat, especially like in single sword, or really any retreat, you want to try to retreat with some kind of lateral direction, because it makes the guy who's advancing against you have to exert some energy and attention to turn, which keeps you safer and lets you move backwards faster, because you, as the person who is moving away, the other person is like kind of obligated to chase you down, right? So they have to wait and see, like, are they moving left? Are they moving right? So retreating laterally is really good. I think the second thing is mostly just that comments I made about the hands being a little bit too low to create defense. You can see that our hands are at about waist level, which is just not a great blocking position for the shoulders and the chest. And I think Pyro's doing a great job of holding Perrin at that top quadrant range where all they can reach is chest and shoulders. So, like, if you're holding that range really well, like, why would you keep your hand low to cover your hips if you're using your footwork to protect your hips and it's your shoulders that are exposed? So I think higher hands and lateral retreat probably would have helped out